Hello guys, good afternoon. Today is June 15th. I'm going to be talking about today's price action, today's daily trading. And going to start by saying that this is being recorded at 1 p.m. my time. The boys, of course, the video is happening at the time it is shown in the video, which is early, basically before New York opened, around 7 New York. 7 New York approximately. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I didn't actually speak throughout the entire video. It was just showing the analysis that I was looking for, what is it that I was looking for and everything. And what I want to do now is basically commentate over it. And for now, nothing really specific, just really show. And whenever I find something that it is of interest for me to talk about, I'll just add it to the video, right? So we'll begin with what's happening right now. As you can see, I'm pointing out the liquidity that was created there, which, as I'm going to mention, that's pretty clear manipulation happening there. And if you check the daily chart, I think we already did that. What we have is here we go. We have a fair value gap that was actually mitigated on that. So that's with that and the buy side liquidity, those are the two reasons why I was actually looking for sells today. Because as you can see, the New York midnight open actually traded higher, right? So it traded higher aggressively. So we could have been expecting a bullish day. But honestly, all that I decided to do on this one is say, well, we have mitigated a fair value gap in the daily chart. We have swept liquidity, a lot of liquidity. So I'm definitely interested on keeping that, right? I'm keeping that in mind and kind of trying to look for sells. And the thing is, you'll see that actually my chart on the right, which is supposed to be the 1 minute chart, is actually a 30 seconds chart. And that was actually a mistake, which I realized later on, but don't worry, nothing really bad happens or anything related to that. But yeah, a tiny bit of a mistake on that. And as you will be able to see, the 5 and the 50 minute weren't really pushing as hard as I wanted them to, basically after stripping all of that liquidity and mitigating a daily fair value gap. Because what I wanted to see again is just displacement and fair value gaps in 5 and 15. After that, all that I was actually going to be looking for is fair value, price to trade within those fair value gaps and to see a fair value gap in a lower time frame, which we did get finally at some point, but not really fast or as fast as I thought it was going to happen. But what am I talking about here? I'm trying to realize. Hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, okay, so what I'm giving you there is the explanation why I'm probably going to be expecting a bearish day. And to be honest, here's something that I've kind of considered a little bit difficult, but it doesn't really seem to be difficult, if I can be completely honest. Direction, right? Bias, because sure, we can say that we could be bearish due to the fair value gap being created, the liquidity being swept and everything, but that doesn't mean the price has actually has to break through that low and continue with the bearish trend, right? But if you check the charts throughout the entire session, you realize that there actually isn't any clear change in the trend in the 5 or 15, which generates a 5 or 15 fair value gap that we can actually trade. Even here, where I'm showing right there, is that we did have a fair value gap earlier, but what we have currently is not a fair value gap. The bullish side does have a little bit of a fair value gap there, right? But it just isn't really that enough for us to consider that as something really good. Here, I'm basically just drawing that order block in 5 minutes and kind of expecting that price to continue within that direction, right? Here, I fucked up with the name and stuff. But yeah, so just wanted to start with this. Not entirely sure what happens in the next few minutes. We could split things up, but I'm just gonna wait and see. But yeah, that's basically the introduction. That's basically why I looked for sells through the entire morning. And well, today's results, I don't really have a number per se. The paper trading account did grow for a good amount. I'm actually going to check right now. So today the account began at 26,457. and finished at $29,094. So if we do the math on that, $29,094 minus this, 26,457, that's actually $2,600, which is, well, 10% actually today, with not much risk, because you'll see in the trades, in some cases I'm risking, most of cases I'm risking less than a 1%, and in some cases I am risking a 1%. Here I'm checking the news, which not funny, how do I say this? Great enough per se. We never really got any very impactful news that actually changed the market aggressively, which is great, because at the end of the day, I would have preferred that to not happen, right? So here I'm saying spreading very bearish due to what? Oh, I took a sell here. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Yeah, I had already realized that I was on the 30 seconds time frame on the right. So here I show 5-minute fair value gap. We're expecting a bearish day, so what is it that we were looking for? Fair value gap in 5 or 15 minute, then 1 minute fills or mitigates that fair value gap and then creates another fair value gap. So you can see that's the entry, and at that moment it was working quite well, and it continued working quite well, and that's the only trade that I should have allowed to run all the way down to the low we were expecting it, which we're talking about the 0400 we can call it, which would have been a really lovely day, trade that would have lasted pretty long time, which would have been great to have. But yeah, just wanted to mention that on that one. And for now, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna continue editing the video and see what we can get about it. Okay, so now we're getting into New York Open. New York has already opened, as you can see. Now here's what I'm drawing. What I'm drawing there, actually, better said, is what I was expecting. I was expecting a bullish move, which is against the current trend, that would sweep bullish liquidity, well, buy side liquidity, and to then continue to the downside, right? So I wanted to see price mitigating the 15-minute fair value gap, hopefully getting into premium, so above New York midnight and above New York session, right, opens, and then try to continue to sell. That was the ideal scenario, but we actually didn't really get that. We do get the high being taken, a very tiny high being taken, that I counted as a buy side liquidity, mostly due to the the aggressive move that we got immediately after. So as I'm showing there, you can see that price slows down, goes higher, sweeps the high that we were creating on the previous pause, and immediately react lower, which created a little bit of a displacement with a little bit of a fair value gap that I ended up trading, as you can see right there. Lovely trade. This is a trade that I took with just paper trading. I was trading with just paper trading today, and later I traded with the MFF 20K, and that's the high that I was mentioning. Just sweeps above that, run on buy side liquidity, sweeps that, clear fair value gap that we get there, and price just continued going lower. That was a pretty good entry, pretty good trade, and at that moment we just had to keep the stops up there and just allow price to do whatever we wanted to do and try to reach the target, which again was what we ended up aiming for, right? So for now, that's all, and I'll come back in a couple of seconds. So here comes a little bit of an important part, which is something that I guess should have done earlier per se. I knew that I was looking for price to go lower, but of course I hadn't really drawn or set any kind of target for, well, any trade that I had taken at that point or any other trade that I could have taken later. So what I ended up doing is drawing all of these rejections, which, as you can see, in the moment I didn't really realize, but what happened is that we were on the 1.0400 or 4,000. I think it's 400. And as you can see, that's what was being respected, right? That's what was being respected. So just because of that, that should have been our target. Below those lows, that's what we should have targeted on any trade that we would have taken today. And the line that I drew there was the short-term drawn liquidity, which was the most recent low on on those levels. And that's what I basically try to hold, right? That's what I basically try to hold or go for. As you can see, this trade actually ended up in a break-even or a loss. I do close more partials in here. I'm showing there that there are a couple of fair value gaps that we could have traded, but I was just uninterested in them. I was looking for something else to occur before that. And here is where I close half of it, a little bit less than half, yeah. But then I do open another trade that ended up taking me out in a loss, or again, I think it was a break even. I mentioned that being so close, we need to close some partials, really not much for us to do on that one. And yeah, just wanted to talk about that. And I think we do get something important here in a bit, which I'll get to now. So what you see right here is me drawing what I was expecting from it, a run on buy side liquidity to then cause a move down that will create a fair value gap for me to trade. That was exactly what I was looking for, which is what I'm about to write now. And that's kind of what happened, which is why I ended up taking another trade in this same structure, which we'll see in a couple of minutes. But ended up not working out, and honestly, it's not a trade that I really regret or anything. I do think that I could have waited for a little bit better. Oh wait, actually, no. Yeah, no. This is a trade that didn't work out. I was mixing it up with the other one. So yeah, you'll see. I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna let you enjoy the video. So here's the first trade, which you can see the little arrow, that the little red arrow that you can see there. I took that one, started well. That's when I closed some partials, because as you can see, the stop loss was a bit too high due to the fact that that was the first entry that we talked about earlier. And yeah, I think this is when I moved my stop loss 5 pips above the entry where it shows the entry is right now on paper trading, but that's actually not the entry, you know. And that's when I'm taken out by a few pips, and then it continues lower, which we'll see in a couple of minutes. But yeah, just wanted to mention that about that trade. Oh, what am I about to say? I'm just looking at the calendar, probably due to the move that we're seeing. Yeah, the little bit of regression and the fact that price is just ranging, and that's what I'm talking about. As you can see in this little portion of the video, I do draw that as the buy side liquidity, but what you will be able to see here and how I basically avoided a loss on this one is just seeing that there's actually no fair value gap to trade in this entire price action after this sweep on liquidity. So just because of that, of course, I said, well, no, I'm not going to be taking any kind of entries, because what is it that we're waiting for? We're waiting for that buy side liquidity to then create a displacement that would usually generate a fair value gap, and that's what we're going to trade. But in this case, that didn't happen. Reason why I ended up not taking trades here, and well, price just went higher, taking out the stop loss and then continuing to go lower. Now here you'll see a little bit of an explanation of what is it that I was actually looking for. first of all, you can see all of the reactions that we had to that level or to that area. And exactly what I was expecting is kind of what ended up happening, although I did kind of messed up on that one. And basically, I was taken out on a stop loss on that one. Of course, a tiny bit of a stop loss compared to all of the partials and wins that we had taken till that point. And what I'm showing here is the reason why I was still pretty convinced about the bias, and honestly I was not going to change it. For the day I was pretty confident that I was actually not going to change the trend unless we saw, I don't know, we had to see like a lot of stuff for me to actually change that trend. And liquidity has yet to be taken, currently on premium based on New York session, and I wanted to see price get to the New York midnight level, so we could have it at a premium as well on the midnight, which sadly didn't happen. But that didn't really say no, you're not able to sell. That was just an extra confluence that if it did, I had even like more reasons to actually be selling there. So I'm drawing that tiny bit of a bullish fair value gap, which didn't like it at all, but well, it was there. 50 minutes, you can see it is creating a bullish fair value gap, which could have been traded, but price I think didn't close it. And right there I showed that we have a bearish 5-minute fair value gap as we have a bullish, and that we are likely to continue to go lower on that thing. Exactly. We're just waiting for price to give us that continuation of the move that we were already having, right? We were already having. This is where the entry comes, which I hesitated for a bit, as you will see. This is a part which I will not cut. Oh, I'm showing the time as well, because it's already 10. And I do mention, I think, that due to the news, we can trade up to 11 or 10:30, which is what I actually said. Which actually is not really that true, because we didn't really get much move from the news, right? So yeah, it's like I will trade a little bit more because there was a good amount of volatility in my opinion, but we're already seeing price ranging and kind of going against the trend, but we were already at 10, so supposedly we shouldn't really be looking for entries at this point. And yeah, you'll see in a couple of minutes that we actually get the entry that I took right on the tip of the retracement, and I will show the why behind the entry as well, don't worry about that. But yeah, for now I'm gonna stop talking and allow the video to run. Okay, so what do we have now? We have mitigated the 15-minute and the 5-minute fair value gap. Also, we are on premium on New York Open, and we're also on a 15-minute order block, right? Which I do think I mentioned now, not later, not before, sorry. So what do we have? We have a strong move down after sweeping a high, and that move down created a fair value gap, which also created a little bit of a displacement. And that's when I mentioned, yeah, that the 15-minute has also an order block in this level. So what are we looking for? If we have a trend that we're following, we're just looking for the continuation of that. How do we trade that? Well, we just go with the trend, right? We say we're bearish, so we look for 15-minute fair value gaps that we can trade, and when price trades into them, we just wait for the 1 minute to do the exact same thing, create a fair value gap with the strong momentum to the downside, which creates well, opportunities for us. That's low risk for now, yes. So I entered with, I think it's a 1 lot size, that 100,000 on TradingView, and I'm gonna speed this up a bit so we can look at it a little bit better. But I also took this one, which is the one that I shown, I think I showed it, the MetaTrader one, which I ended up taking it as well, which I wasn't very convinced about, but I think we had really good reasons to sell from this point. Now, the only thing that I didn't really like about the trade was that I basically took a lot of time to actually move. Well, not to actually move, but to actually, yeah, let's call it to actually move, which was a little bit annoying because it didn't really show much intent. What I wanted to see here was a market shift to try and sell again, but we didn't really get that till later. So let me speed things up here. So here comes the last that I recorded, which is mentioning that we're past 10 a.m., which is outside training time. Sorry, news didn't really cause much volatility, which is what I mentioned there. Sorry. So I was seeing this more like a potential retracement to go a bit higher to then continue to go lower. But of course, I was gonna let that trade run and see what happened and everything. But basically, what I needed to see, which didn't happen till late, was a market shift, right? A market shift that would then generate opportunities for me to basically be able to continue to sell. I had already that sell. I should have kept the sell that we had pretty early on the day. And yeah, so here I start talking about the potential afternoon session, mostly due to the fact that it was basically going slowly, like we had the price action on Monday and Tuesday. So it could have seen somewhat of a bearish opportunity forming up later in the day, around this time, right? 1 p.m. New York, which is right now. So this is when I left home, and then I ended up taking some executions on TradingView, which we'll talk about now. But that's basically how today I managed to get some really good profits. We're talking about a 10% on the paper trading, a 3% on the MFF account, which was with a 0.5% risk. So that's a 6R. So I'm gonna stop this and start recording now. Okay, so we are here now, and let me show you. Let me actually go to the other chart. Okay, let's just go straight to this one. This is today's trading. So first trade that we took was this one all the way up here. Really good trade. This is the only trade that I should have allowed to run all the way down to this level. Would have been amazingly good. But I ended up closing on the midnight level, which I showed on the video. Took partials here, then realized what we were close to. So I said, let's just go with the midnight open, and that's gonna be a quick close. It was a good close in my opinion. Really happy with those profits, and nothing much else to add. I think this was a 1% risk on the entire account. So yeah, what happens after price ranges a little bit? We had this is the price action that I showed, that I would just want to see price go higher. And what is it that it do? What is it that it does? It just goes above this high, right? And immediately starts trading aggressively to the downside, which this is what I ended up trading. A somewhat of a risky trade due to the fact that it's very structured, right? But if we have the trend or the bias, the potential bias for the entire next of the day, the entire rest of the day, then we're just going to be looking for good confluences to sell, right? It doesn't really matter what we get, but if we get good confluences, which in my opinion these are good confluences, what is it that we actually have? Price going higher, right? Aggressively goes higher, takes buy side liquidity, and immediately retraces, creating a displacement with a fair value gap that we can trade. That, in my opinion, is good enough. And if we don't trust that, then what is it that we get later? Well, later, we don't really get much, right? Nothing in here. But then price trades inside this 5-minute fair value gap. What is it that it does? We have a aggressive impulse to the upside, aggressive impulse to the downside. Does it create a fair value gap? It does not. Trades aggressively again to the upside, mitigating this candle, this couple of two candles again, taking this high on liquidity we had, this liquidity, and immediately creates a fair value gap, which is what we traded. Trades again into that, and what is it that we get here? Another fair value gap. When we start seeing fair value gap after fair value gap, that's something that we just have to take advantage of if we are following the trend, right? Same thing with this one. With this one. So this is the first, right? Well, the first after this one, I mean. Another fair value gap, entry, as you can see, trades, starts falling. What is it that we have here? Another fair value gap, another entry. Stop loss above this high at the very least, hopefully above this high, but I was holding it, every single entry here had the stop loss all the way up to 320, which was above this high, because I knew that if I was correct on the bias, that's what we have to go for. That's where our stop loss has to be. So next entry, price ranged a little bit. This one was just taking a retracement and then closing some partials on this. Continues to trade lower, more partials, because we're breaking all of the lows that we have here to the left. So this low is broken, partials, this low is broken, partials, and so on and so forth, right? And then I think this was the final thing. No, actually it wasn't. No, yeah, it was. Yeah, because I had 500,000 here. And when this low was taken, I said, let's just cut half because we were looking for this. And what price does is trade aggressively below that high, right? Below that low. So where should our target been? Below this low, right? Because that was the tip, if I am right. Yeah, the tip on this level. The lowest point of this entire move. So what just happened? A lot of sell side liquidity has been taken. So what is it going to do? It has to rebalance things. So it's likely to go higher now, right? What is it likely going to go for? Well, it has taken a lot of liquidity from this point, which is yesterday's price action. It's actually just today. Yeah, never mind. It could just retrace higher to take. So keep in mind that on this, a lot of sellers were activated. So price should retrace to take those sellers out with the loss to then continue with the move. So a retracement up to something maybe in the daily, maybe in the 4 hour, to then continue to go lower would definitely be very attractive. But I guess we'll see. I'm not really going to be trading the afternoon session because price moved a lot during the morning session. So that's more than enough for me. And what I wanted to check is this. I wanted to check this entry because our stop loss has to be all the way up above this high, which seems a lot in the moment. But look, if we would have gone below this low, this trade alone would have given us 9%. Right? Going somewhat conservative just on this, 8% again. So yeah, just wanted to show this. Hope you enjoyed today's format of video because at the end of the day, I didn't talk through the session. I thought it was a little bit better so that way I could record the session but still be pretty focused on what I wanted to do without really having to talk or anything like that. So yeah, it was something interesting for me. I really enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoyed. Hope you took something over from it. And I'll be seeing you until the next one.